Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Sanjeev Ganatra, and welcome to another episode of CBCC Global Research's Around the Globe webinar series, where we have the unique opportunity to be able to interact with leaders from innovation side, from investors to physicians to researchers to companies to service providers that are helping to move innovation forward in the ophthalmic space and around the globe. So today I am pleased to have Dr. David Bingaman, who is the Chief Development Officer with Merit. And welcome, David.
Thank you very much, Sanjeev. It's a privilege to be here today.
Well, David, let's dive in. Would love to get to know you first. Certainly, your wealth of experience, both on the ophthalmic side as well as on the clinical services side. So if you don't mind just giving the audience a little bit about your background and your role at Merit.
In my professional career, which has spanned roughly nearly 30 years now in the ophthalmology, pharma, and device arena, I've had the privilege and, frankly, for me, blessing of working at strategics, mid-sized companies, as well as startups. In these roles and capacities, I've had the opportunity to work on development programs all within ophthalmology that have involved gene therapy, biologics, and small molecules. My background by training is that I'm a board-certified veterinary ophthalmologist, and I have a PhD in ocular angiogenesis. I started my pharma career on the discovery side, and then as certain assets were elevated into first-in-human trials, I was asked to lead those development teams, and then eventually stayed full-time in clinical development and regulatory. I've had the privilege of being Chief Development Officer at pharma companies, also at a global ophthalmology CRO, and I've also had the opportunity to be a CEO in a fractional role. These experiences have all come together now that I've joined Merit, which in this new Chief Development Officer role. So Merit is an endpoint service. It focuses on the morphology and functional endpoints necessary to drive a program forward. And we'll discuss this more, but we really can support now those type of endpoints from the preclinical side all the way through all phases of clinical development to approval and beyond. And Merit has now, although its foundation and still its strength is in ophthalmology, it has been making strong inroads into oncology and respiratory over the last 5 to 7 years.
Thanks, David. First of all, great to get to know you from both the ophthalmic side and clinical services side. And with Merit, let's learn a little bit more in terms of Merit wasn't always Merit. There's some history to how Merit has become what it is today. Maybe you could take us through a short history and a journey of where Merit is today, and then we'll kind of chat a little bit about where it's going.
Yes, well, I should say right from the beginning that Merit is excited about building this partnership with CBCC and your full service CRO capabilities, including your CDMO capabilities for drug product formulations. So Merit originally started as a spin-out of the University of Wisconsin's Reading Center. At that time, it was called ICOR because it was based only in ophthalmology. And it really was the technology enablement of Reading Center services. And that's chiefly illustrated by the use of our proprietary cloud-based platform that was a first-in-class software package to collect the data from sites from the various imaging technologies. Now that involves all the visual function technology assessments as well. And this platform is called Excelsior. Excelsior was the first software package without a device to be cleared by the FDA as a 510K cleared device, medical device. It also has ISO certifications as well. So this cloud-based platform is really the foundational piece of the technology enablement of our endpoint services, which do include still an ophthalmology reading center. That reading center is overseen by our co-founder and chief scientific officer, Dr. Ron Danis, who is a retina specialist with over 30 years of experience and over 25 years of experience of leading reading center services. Now, the evolution then was roughly about 5 years ago, is moving into other specialty endpoints such as oncology, and this is where we start to really have a synergistic relationship with you and your foundation in oncology, and then also respiratory endpoints for clinical trials.
Oh, that's wonderful. And what I'm especially pleased about with what Merit has to offer is it's complementary to what CBCC Global Research is able to provide, and our ability to be able to go out to our collective audience, both on the patient perspective side as well as for companies that are trying to move innovation forward, and provide them with a holistic solution. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about where Merit is going. There's foundations in operationalizing how you guys are moving forward. I'd love to learn about some of the technology that you guys have implemented from a machine learning standpoint. Maybe you could talk to our audience a little bit about that.
Yes, those are exciting perspectives. First, maybe to go to the operational muscle of that technology-enabled reading center or endpoint service. Merit now in ophthalmology has the largest global footprint of a reading service, or again, where we are now all endpoints, both morphology and function, with certification of clinical trial sites in 64 different countries and conducting over 450 trials, and that's certifying across those 64 countries over 4,000 sites. Now that it also involves the oncology clinical trials and their sites, as well as respiratory. And that very strong technology-enabled global operational muscle has been augmented by the recent purchase of Ocular Services on Demand, OSOD, which is really a ploy on left eye, right eye, which is a preclinical development company that supports ophthalmology IND enablement studies, whether it be related to CMC, and this is another partnership aspect, CBCC Global, as well as efficacy pharmacology studies, exploratory and GLP toxicology, etc. It's really all the thought leadership and the operational capabilities in partnerships with preclinical CROs to support sponsors from the very beginning of their development journey all the way through to approval, when you include, of course, the clinical side of Merit, which is its foundation. And then associated with all of that is our R&D engine, we call it, where we're always looking at where in ophthalmology, and now, as I mentioned, oncology and respiratory, where there is a need for new endpoints in certain indications to help move them forward, to possibly improve the assessment of efficacy pharmacology or safety, or possibly even create the regulatory pathway towards approval by using and validating a new primary endpoint. For example, we have several tools that we're developing for GA and for intermediate AMD, all within the dry AMD space. And all of these tools, these different endpoints that we're developing, are enabled by machine learning tools or artificial intelligence-based tools. And those tools are useful, one, because of the speed at which they can do their task. They're incredibly efficient, which then reduces the amount of time spent on the grading, which then provides access to data to the sponsor or the CRO supporting the sponsor in a much quicker fashion. Plus, they can, with training, those same tools can eliminate human error. Now, by FDA guidance, they all need human grader oversight. And so we definitely provide that. And that, of course, at the top of that is our Chief Scientific Officer, Dr. Ron Dennis, with all his years of experience. So being involved in developing something new, a novel endpoint with machine learning tools, that's something that drew me to Merit, and I'm very excited about what we can do for both the preclinical and the clinical side.
No, that's wonderful. You know, a couple of points that really mirror with what Merit is doing and what CBCC Global Research does. When you think about the operational side of your business, what comes to my mind is the 380 ophthalmic specific retina area studies that Merit has done. On the oncology side, the over 500 studies that Merit has been able to be a part of, and the number of sites throughout a number of countries that you guys have been able to validate and ensure that those sites are ready to go from an arrangement standpoint. CBCC Global Research in the same way, you know, being able to be a global outreach, both in oncology and ophthalmology. From an operational standpoint, those two things align very nicely. When we think about the technology, the ability to have both machine learning as well as a platform that can look at both the clinical side as well as preclinical side, almost two rooms in the same house sort of model, is wonderful. CBCC Global Research has recently also, from a technology standpoint, moved programs forward. So for example, our own EDC platform, ETMF, and CTMS platform that we've homegrown, where we can offer that as an option to our respective clients. We still will work with whomever they choose, but we certainly can offer them another alternative from a technology standpoint. So operational and technology, both important when we think about how to best serve our clients. And so we appreciate that about what Merit's doing as well. Maybe we shift gears a little bit on the innovation side. We see tremendous innovation, and we'd love to hear from you, given your perspectives, both as a executive leader on the pharma delivery services standpoint, but also on the clinical services standpoint. Where do you see innovation moving forward? Maybe a couple of bullet points from that end.
Sure. What's interesting about our joint service offerings is really, on one hand, the strength of the global operational capabilities to support large phase 3 registration studies. For example, in retina, there's some of the largest phase 3 retina studies, phase 3 studies. And then also with the novel endpoint development, with the unique offerings within each company, we can support the smallest of sponsor in supporting them not only operationally, but with the thought leadership to engage and help move their development program forward in a fiscally responsible but very strong scientific fashion. And for Merit, one of the things that we're doing for the clinical on the clinical side is related to the endpoints that I mentioned, which are some servicing areas of need within certain indications. For example, the pathway for approval for intermediate AMD hasn't been fully established yet. So participating in developing the right endpoints for that, having the right conversations with sponsors and regulatory authorities, engaging in that. And then as we look at the future of both drug and device development, is really the whole aspect of patient diversity and patient enablement. So making sure that we're enrolling our clinical trials that matches the demographics of the populations we intend to serve. And then at the same time, involving the actual patient, the individual patient, as much as possible in their healthcare. That's both from a monitoring and from a treatment perspective. For example, most of the approved therapies for retinal indications right now are some form of injection into the eye. There are many different therapies now that are being looked at that might be from a topical ocular standpoint, which is not easy, of putting a drop on the eye and having that molecular entity achieve therapeutic benefit in the back of the eye. or oral administration, perhaps sub-Q injection, but really the oral or the topical can be done at home. And now with the advent of home monitoring systems, whether it's morphology or function, and Merit has participated in recent clearances of devices that are used for home monitoring. So being able to couple the home treatment with the home monitoring with a decentralized trial initiative and the right patient demographics from a diversity standpoint.
No, that's wonderful. And the way that we look at it also, again, thinking about the overlap in the partnership is CBCC's ability to have US operations, India operations, and be able to use those as hubs for other global trials as well. So thank you for, sort of highlighting the ability for the patient demographic to be at the core central part of how it is that we think about patient care, and certainly the appropriate decentralized trials. So with that, David, I want to thank you for spending a few minutes with us today. Certainly great to always speak with you, and excited about where Merit is going, and about where we're going. And so with that, thank you again for your time today.
Thank you very much. I echo the excitement. We're very interested in building this partnership for the benefit of patients. Looking forward to it.